Thank you everyone for joining Tech Tuesday. Craig had a great idea for this meeting today to be about in this hot market. Sometimes it feels very confusing and hard for buyers to know what they should offer on a home. It seems like a total guess, right? So there's a home listed at 400,000. You're like, well, how high do we need to go? And a lot of times as agents, we're really guessing. We don't know how high to go. And so what Craig wants to do here is shed a little light on how you can make more of an educated guess. And guess is probably the wrong word. How you can really use data to determine likely how high you have to go to get your offer accepted. So would you say that's a good preface, Craig?
Yes.
Awesome. So I will let you take the lead.
Okay. So you're looking at a listing somebody likes, and you look at the broker remarks, and it says a lot of times just like this: multiple offers received, they're reviewing them today. And then, your offer review date's down here, and you're trying to, figure out how you're going to make your offer. You've talked about pre-inspecting it or waiving the inspection. You've talked about if you're going to go above additional down payment and those different strategies. But really, when it comes down to the offer, you're going to be putting an offer on the home based on what they're asking. So your purchase price on the first page, I think it's line 5, and you're going to put in this case, 420,000, or psychologically, you might want to just go 425 starting point there. And you're going to do an escalator, and you're going to ramp this up. So how much do you have to ramp up to be successful if all other terms are fairly equal? If the other competing offers waive their inspection and they also put 10,000 down or 20 over low appraisal or something of that nature, we just want to figure that all other terms are equal. We're not going to talk about those strategies at the moment. But we'll
just if you haven't already, go back and watch. A few weeks ago, we did a video on how to get your offer accepted in a hot market, and we talked all about those strategies. So today we're going to we're not going to really talk about those because we have talked about those, and today we're going to talk about strictly the escalation clause and what you should escalate specifically. Sorry to interrupt, Craig.
That's okay. So if you have questions on any of the other terms for playing chess, and how to win offers, talk to Isaac or look at our past videos for those items. So we're looking at this particular property here. It's 420,000. We know that it's going on, the review date period that it's going to sell, and the days on market is going to be the same as whether it's 0 days up to 7 days until they input it into pending. And so we want to look at comparable properties to the square footage in the area, and in that price range for homes that sold in the first, 7 days to 8 days on market. You don't want to look at something and compare it to a 30-day or a 60-day on market, because their sales price versus their list price will likely be different, because they may have lowered their list price if they were overpriced, and then they went to sell and they only had one offer, not competing offers. So that it wouldn't be a comparable. We want to focus on this days on market here. And so what we're going to do is we have this property identified, and now the way that we have a prediction is to look in the past. We don't have a crystal ball to go forward, but we're going to look at mainly we do want to know what's active, contingent, but we really want to know what's sold. We're going to focus on this sold. You may actually, in this period in time, we know that in November the market went even a little crazier. So we're in the 4th month. We're about 6 months back. That 180 should work fine. But if you wanted to tune that up and make it the last 60 days or 90 days, you can. We'll play with that. We're going to focus on a price range. This one's 420. So from 400,000 to let's go with 450. And you can change these things, but we're going to put that in there. And we're really quite concerned with that, just price. We're not as concerned with the beds, baths, square feet, and things of that nature yet. We're just trying to see what people are paying over an asking price in that range of 400 to 450 in the days on market down here in your filters. If you have not added fields of days on market, you hit the add and remove button, and go find it, select it, add it, move it over here, and make sure that your general or quick search that you're using has all these fields that you want to find. And you can see my days on market's really close to the top because I use this quite a bit. So we want to look at 0 to 7 days on market. This will show us homes that have multiple offer scenarios, most likely. It is residential. We want to stick to that, not a condo. And the particular property that we're looking at, we could just copy off Realist. I opened up Realist, and we could just take this and center around that by going back over to Matrix, put it in the map search, coming up to this where it says jump to an address, paste it in. And
okay, guys, we are not looking for comps here. We're looking for comparable
sold properties within the
sales, like as in like comparable in the sense that they sold in this comparable price range comparably quick, but we're not looking for comps. This is not, our goal here is not to determine what the value of this home is. Our goal is to determine what homes are selling for based how much more they're selling for over list price.
Yeah, if you wanted to look at it like an appraiser, you're going to look at it and try to have your judgment of what you think fair market value is. That's a whole nother thing. Like Isaac's saying, we know this home's going to sell within the first few days on market like this. We know that they're going to get multiple offers and it's going to set value. So we're not looking for value. We want to compete and find out what it takes to compete for this. So you really can take, in this particular case, a pretty large area, and you can play with any of this all you want, but I'm just going to do something like this.
Which again, you wouldn't do this if you were looking for the value. You'd want to
So
be close to the comp.
There is 31 properties, and we could see that out of all these, how about that? The only active listing in this 450 is this particular home. Active, the rest are pending inspection. You need to turn your speaker up. You could just follow here. Sorry, Wilson came in. Just mute your screen.
He's muted now.
Okay, so.
Oh, it doesn't sound like it though.
It's not about the mute, it's because he has his speaker on.
Okay, he turned it off. All right, so back to this property, if you wanted to, probably make sense to get the year built close, if you wanted to eliminate some. So year built's 2004, that is important. Most of the homes in this area, they're not 2004, so let's at least get rid of anything older than 1940. There's not too much rhyme or reason. I took it down to 18. All right, so now we have all these properties. I select all, I hit print, and we won't go into this too deep. You keep playing with that stuff. You aren't trying to get a market analysis for value like Isaac said, but you are trying to find homes that you might look back through the pictures and find that this one is, really fixed up and nice. And so you don't want to look at junkers.
Which we eliminated a lot of those up front by doing 400,000 plus.
Yeah, but let's just take a look at this because this did work, right? Because it gave us what's happening. Many of those factors don't really matter. What matters is that what homes were under the competition of multiple offers first few days on market. Here they are. The average was 4 days on market, as you can see down here. The average sales price versus list price is 107.67. So up here, it says, here's our list original price, here's our list price, our sold price. Here's the sold price versus original list price, sold price versus list price. The last list price is what this is. But in this case, nobody reduced their prices because we're dealing with homes that were 1 week or less on market. So this accomplishes exactly what we're trying to figure out. And that's, well, you want a chance at this? It really looks pretty obvious that 107.67 could get you in the game. maybe at an 80% chance or better if all other terms are the same. But you can see this one sold for 114% over asking, 118% over asking, and then there's, 100. So with this blend in here, it can make it a little difficult, but you get a better educated guess of where you need to be. And I've done enough of these lately, they end up really around 110, 111%. So this 107 doesn't surprise me. If you got rid of this 100 here and this 100 here, maybe took a look at these homes, maybe they aren't as nice. And if you took those two out, then this price, this percentage over list price would go up probably to 110 or greater. So you just do your best to go through these pictures, show that client that this is what we're looking at. And I eliminated, the ones that don't really match up, and whatever this number is over here, that's what you're going to use to gauge it, try to beat them by, right? So if we had 107% on the list price of 420, is take your calculator and
that's 450, almost on the dot.
Oh, I thought you said I typed something wrong. I'm going to put in 108%. So 453, 600, I would say you'd have a really good chance if this is just, you've made 4 offers and you're glad you didn't get them because this is the home you really, really want. Okay, well, don't mess around here. You've got to be at 8%. You might even go back and evaluate the credit out all these and realize that this home built in 2004, we need to eliminate some of these condition wise, and you may go up to 115% on this one.
So the beauty of this, guys, is a lot of times when you're working with a buyer, they look at you when you say, well, they say, what should we offer? And you say, well, I think we got to go up to 450. And they're going to be like, man, they're spending my money. They look at you like, that's easy for you to say, it's not your money. What you're doing here is you're pulling back the veil and you're showing them, no, that's not some arbitrary number. I'm not throwing a random number at a wall. Look at, this is what is happening in the market. This is the past 180 days. This is what homes that sell in the first week are selling for, X amount above the list price. And that's an average. A lot of them, as Craig already said, are selling for, above 110%. And so it's like whenever anyone's trying to sell you anything, if they just tell you the price, you don't feel good about it. But if they tell you the price and why it's priced at that price, you feel a little bit better about paying for it. It's the same thing. You want to explain that this is normal to pay above list price. I mean, there's still, I still work with people who say, well, my dad said he bought his home, you never pay above list, and he bought his home for 5% less. That's just not the case anymore. And don't take my word for it. Look at the stats. This is fact. So that's what you're doing here. You're trying to make it more, you're trying to explain that this is not necessarily a science, but this is data.
Yeah. And I like to, all my customers at some point, whether I'm taking my computer into the field or my iPad, so I can show them this very platform that we're getting into, and I'm letting them know that you've seen these 3 trees. They show up on anybody's website pulling data. Everybody's pulling information about that out of the MLS. The appraiser's using the information out of the MLS. This is where we get all of our data and value information. So I'm not pulling a rabbit out of a hat here. I'm showing you transparently behind the scenes. An example I tell people is you come in and you board the 747 and you look over at the cockpit and it's really scary. There's a lot of gauges. We got a pilot that says to you, hey, you know what? I've taken off 1,000 times. I've landed 1,000 times or 500,000, whatever. And I've got you covered. Why don't you go sit in first class and just relax? I'm going to land you safely. There could be a little turbulence along the way, but we'll get through that and we'll give you first class service. So people feel a little bit more at ease that they see that you have all these controls behind the scenes and you've showed them to them, at least one time. So when you're out in the field the next time, you're not having to pull your computer out and you're just going, look, remember we talked about the market analysis and how I went and I searched for buyers, how to set you up on an auto email. That's pretty easy. We look for active. And in the case we're looking for sellers to list their home to get a price that it's going to achieve multiple offers in this market and so forth, this is how we should price it. Well, we also look at that way with buyers is just today we said, how do we know that it's worth it? Well, you know, we almost don't need to ask that question anymore, because they're going to go in the first few days on market, and this is another way, right? We're going, the value is likely going to be there, and even if it's not, you're willing to pay 20 grand over a low appraisal or whatever the case is. So how do we win? And we go in and we do a market analysis like we do for sellers, but in a different light, like you saw today. We're really focusing on a price range. You know, I don't want to get too granular, but you bottom line is you look at these homes now, and you could say, well, you know what, characteristically, this one here is like a story and a half. So should I compare it against a split level? If you have too many properties, you could probably do that. But I mean, really, you're just looking at this competition thing. So not necessarily. It's giving you some numbers. But if you're really worried about winning or losing in on this one, then you're going to want to definitely go through the pictures, take a look. You're going to want to look at other things, like look at the street addresses and know that this one here, that's not a busy street. I know it's not. Well, I'm gonna take this one out without even guessing in our report. What is this, 72nd? Let's go up to this landscape here. Where did 72nd sell? Right here at the bottom. Well, they got 105.88%, and I would suspect that they may get less because it's on a busy street, but it is less than the 108%. You might look at like Alaska, that's a busy street, in 74th. Taking those two out would make sense. This one here at 6635 is interesting because it's really close to the one that we're comparing. So you just kind of go back and you look at this stuff and say, okay, I want to take that one out. And I want to take out, where was it, Alaska, this one. And I'm curious about this other one on 5 as to, you know, I don't really want to take it out because it's pretty close to our property, our subject property. So why did it only go at 100%? It's pretty nice. So without even digging too deep, that doesn't make sense. So what is their situation that they got? Oh, they got 105%. Oh, because it's 72 and 5. We need to get 60th and 5 right here. So what was up with this one? This looks like it's, I don't know if it's situated weird on the lot, but that still nothing shabby about this. There's something funky as to why this one didn't get 107%. So do we want it really screwing with us and bringing down that number when we're trying to win for these people? So let's go zoom in on the lot. Nah, doesn't look really awkward that way. So was there something in here? Was it a tenant occupied home? Was it difficult to show? Looks like it was owner occupied. And here is the difference right here, probably. Offers were viewed upon receipt, not by a date for a bidding war. They sold at VA at 100%. I wouldn't do that if I was a listing broker in this market, because you can see that they probably could have got 105 minimum up to 110% according to those other numbers.
And that's the problem with this, is with, you know, everything like this is not, there's not a perfect system, right? I mean, there's also the chance that the broker was just an inexperienced broker who didn't know what she was doing, and they got an offer at list price, and they said, cool, we're going to accept it. And everybody else is expecting them to wait a few days. So this is not, you're not going to necessarily determine after doing this exactly what you need to offer to get this home accepted. In fact, I can guarantee you won't. The idea here,
I just learned something on the fly, and this is why I like to do this and play with this. I can add these two fields now, and one thing that's true is we want to look at the review date. We don't want to look at intends to review upon receipt. Now we can eliminate and did it eliminate? It should have, yeah, it did.
Now we're looking at homes that had bidding wars. They were under 7 days, they're in our price range, and they had the bidding war scenario.
So I may know a lot and I'm quirky and I do all this, but you could see that I just learned something right in front of your eyes. I just thought outside the box there. and thought, oh, well, instead of like looking at every one of them, I'll just add that field on the review date. So I'll just tweak my method now, as you just saw, and that'll just save me a little time because, like Isaac said, we're looking at competing review date. And what does that do to our report? Click on one line landscape. If you don't click on one line landscape, you don't get this over here, which is the most interesting thing to me. Is, you know, you also can use this when you're bidding on something that's 30 days on market, 60 days on market. Just do the data that way. Go to the cumulative days on market and go 30 to 60. And you're going to come up with a whole different number set over here. You'll see original price, you know, and then a lower list price, and then different sold price versus original list price and sold price versus list price in that other scenario. In this scenario, we just went up to 108.95. So that did increase it. So if we had stopped before at 108 and lost it, looks like we should bid 110% on this property. Up to, we're going to use an escalator. We got to beat by, we're at 425. We'll beat the next one by, don't just pick 1,000. Don't pick 1,500. You should pick 1,100 or 1,600 in that case scenario, because that could be another conversation another day. Isaac, you've talked about escalators, but there's methods. You don't just say, oh, I'm going to go to 450. I'll beat the next one by 1,000. My offer's 4.25. Well, that's going to put you in a bad situation if the other person, was willing to nudge up a little bit, because you can only beat a 449 offer because you're only beating them by 1,000. Even though you said you'll go to 450, you're going to lose out to 449 100 potentially, because your beat by is 1,000 and you're only going to 450. So
Craig,
be a little deep another day, but you're just seeing right here is what we're trying to get, is how much are we going to go up. So what's 109% of 420?
it's about 458. That's off the top of my head. We'll see. 420 times 1.09. Oh my gosh. Call me Rain Man. 457,800.
So 457,800, 450 wouldn't have won this bidding war. So at 457,800, what do we need to look like? Do we go with an escalator to 460 then? Or 461 and beat them by 1,100? So now we're at what? 460. That'll probably work. So you just got to really go through this stuff and rehearse it to yourself, because if you're starting to tell this to other people, it's confusing. And if you're not able to explain it on the spot, it can get embarrassing, right?
Right. So can I take what you're saying and put it in a little bit different light?
Go ahead.
Okay. If you're going on a hike and everyone says it's an easy hike, and it turns out it's actually a really, really tough hike, and you were not prepared, you didn't wear the right shoes and didn't have the right gear and all that, it sucks. It's a really bad experience. But if you're going on that same hike and everyone's like, hey, it's a fun hike, great view at the top, but it's going to be a challenge, know this, this, and this. That exact same hike, exact same person, it's going to be a totally different experience because they were prepared for it. So where I use this, I don't do this as much in the moment before I write an offer on any given home. Not that Craig does that every single time either, but what I do is this. And so I'm going to share my screen really quick. When I am having my initial buyer consultation with somebody, can you see my screen? MLS? Craig, raise your hand if you can see it.
I don't see your screen. I see the single family CMA.
I think you need to unshare my screen first.
Okay.
Go to the top of the screen where it says you're viewing CTs. There you go.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions on any of that as far as how to develop your criteria?
Craig, can you see my screen now?
See a bunch of homes.
No, it's still me.
Okay, Craig, you have to click stop sharing screen, I guess. Top of your screen.
Yeah, I need Stop video is an option.
Nope, top, very top center.
Yeah, this thing, I can't get my Zoom to open up in full. Why is that?
Let me see if I can override it.
Did something just pop up for you, Craig?
Okay, I'm gonna keep talking. Well, Craig, keep trying to unshare your screen. So what I do is in my initial buyer consultation where you got a buyer who's coming into this market, they've either bought before or they've never bought before, and they don't know what to expect, right? Sometimes it's a first-time home buyer and you have to explain everything like this is what earnest money is, and so on. We're going to talk about what to expect. So then it's a better, it's easy, maybe not easier, but it's less surprising when they see a home listed at 400 and you tell them that they have to offer 450 to get it, right? That to us is obvious. Like of course, that's how this market is. But to them, there we go. I figured it out, Craig. To them, they don't know that. So what I do is I'm sitting with them. Now, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. I say, okay, so we're looking in the 400 to 500 range. I just had this conversation with someone 2 days ago on Saturday. So 3 days ago. I said, okay, so we're looking in the 400 to 500 range. I'm looking at, this is just past 90 days. This is what the market is. Okay, past 90 days. We're looking at 7 days or less on market, and seller will review offers and offer review date. Okay. And now this person is looking right around the Lincoln district. So I took everywhere around the Lincoln district. You could go a little broader, but anyways, now I'm going results. I'm just looking at sold. I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going and doing the exact same thing that Craig just talked about. Now I can say I'm sitting down, I'm talking to my buyer for the first time. So check this out. And again, I'm showing them this. I'm not just telling them, oh, you're going to have to offer a lot. I'm showing them, look I just did this right in front of you. Homes are selling for in that area, in that price range, 111%, actually 112% above list price. So just so you know, if we see a home listed at X, it's probably going to sell for X times 1.12, period. That makes your process with your buyer so much easier. Oh my gosh. Because now it's not every single time you sit down with them and say, oh, they love this home. You're not having to convince them to go high on every single one. You just convince them right now, one time, that they're going to have to offer this on any home that's in a competing offer situation, period. The only exception to this, if you're my buyer, I'm going to say the only exception to this is if we find a home that's been on the market for a couple of weeks, which, all two of them, like it just doesn't happen. But if that happens, it's going to be a different strategy. But in this case, homes in this price range, in this area, they are all selling for, on average, 112%. And look, we got some at 125%. So that's a really quick, easy thing that you can do. Just add to your business right now. Whenever you have that initial buyer consultation, tell them what to expect. Tell them this is a really tough hike. It's going to be worth it. When you get to the top, it's an amazing view, but it's a hard hike. And you need to also, this is another thing that you can point out to them. The homes are selling in 4 days. So we're not like, when a home hits the market, we need to see it now. We cannot wait till next weekend. It will be gone next weekend, right? With very few exceptions. So anyways, this is something that if I were you guys, I'd instantly implement this in your business. It'll make working with buyers so much easier because they'll know what to expect. Any thoughts on that, Craig?
I had to unmute. Yeah, my buyers expect this to happen.
Exactly.
They expect me to send them the CMA and show them exactly what you guys are viewing today for them to make their best educated guess. And then I just tell them, we talked about the other terms. You're not asked for closing costs. You've pre-inspected it. You aren't going to do 2280. So other than asking if there's anything the seller wants for rent back or closing date, you're getting right into what is your initial price, what is your top on your escalator, what is your beat buy based on this CMA that I just sent you, showing you the percentage they're getting above list price. Now, exactly. They don't feel like you're forcing them to do anything, selling them, pulling a rabbit out of a hat. They're right alongside me in this whole thought process, and it's not a me versus them. It's
a team.
Just collaborating.
Yep. And then this is another thing you can do when when you're working with a buyer who's like, well, I don't want to pay my closing costs. Like they have money to pay their closing costs, but they don't want to. Or if there's someone who doesn't have money to pay their closing costs, just let them know we have a hard journey ahead. So using this exact same search, just go down, seller concessions, no. Next one. I bet they're all going to be no. Seller concessions, it doesn't specify, so that's a no. Go down, seller concessions, no. These are all no's. And so that's just showing them, it kind of sucks because it's like, I don't want to discourage you if you're my buyer, but at the same time, I don't want to paint an incorrect picture. This is going to be, if you need your closing costs paid for, it's going to be really hard. We're going to have to offer ridiculously above list price. We're going to have to waive inspections or do pre-inspections. If you don't, then our only option is we're going to look at homes that have been on the market for more than 7 days. And I'm sorry, but I'm just a messenger. And having this conversation ahead of time makes it so much easier. I've got a listing that my seller overpriced, and had the drop the price conversation with her today. And it was a very easy conversation, which is normally not, because I told her ahead of time, here's what's going to happen. I said, I want to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. If we sell for more, I make more money, let's be honest. But if it doesn't, we're going to drop it after 2 weekends. And we're going to drop it to this. And she was like, yeah, that makes sense. So today I said, we good? And she's like, yeah, we're good. We tried. It's same thing, right? We're preparing them for the worst case. And then it makes the journey a lot easier when they already are aware of it. So that was good. Short and sweet. Any questions? Does anybody have any questions about this?
Sarah in the chat said, can you please remind everyone that the competing offer must be sent as a part of the escalation PSA contract?
So important. This, man, so important. When you are representing the seller and you get multiple offers and almost all of them have escalation clauses, right? So you use the escalation clause on the one you're going to accept. To use that, you have to use a competing offer that pushed it to the higher offer, right? The 35E, the escalation clause, clearly states this. To utilize the escalation clause, the competing offer has to be sent at the exact same time. It doesn't say, sometime, at the exact same time with the accepted escalated offer. So just very simplified. If you are using the escalation clause and you're representing the seller and you're sending it back to the buyer who got their offer accepted, you have to include the offer that you used to escalate the winning offer. You have to. And if you don't, they get it at the purchase price that's on the Form 21, not the purchase price that's on the 35E. So I mean, it literally in these cases could cost your seller $50,000+. And this is one last important part about that. With a buyer and you write a mistake on an offer, you miss a decimal, that's not good. You can always back out using your inspection clause or something like that. With a seller, once you're locked in at a price, you are locked in at a price. As we all know, sellers can't get out of deals. They're locked in. When they sign on the dotted line, it's done. So if you did this wrong, I mean, you could literally cost your seller $50,000 and have a lawsuit on your hands. So thank you, Sarah, for mentioning that. On that pleasant note. Cool. Well, I hope that was helpful. One last note. I mentioned a buyer's consultation. I'm working with a buyer right now who left another agent, and he was like, "Yeah, it was just really frustrating because the other agent didn't really explain any of this like you're explaining this to me," and it made me think I should talk about this a little more. If someone is talking to you about looking for homes, we get all excited and we're like, "Let's go start looking at homes," and we have a phone call with them or something. I really encourage you to set up a buyer's presentation. You don't need some big PowerPoint thing, but set up a buyer's consultation with them where you meet them at the office or at coffee or whatever, or at least do a Zoom meeting, and you have a list of bullet points. And I can actually share my list. In fact, I will, of everything that you want to cover. And a lot of it's basic. A lot of people are going to be like, I understand earnest money. We're good. But I talk about everything, and it normally ends up being at least an hour. Talk about closing costs. I talk about I talk about waiving an inspection versus a pre-inspection versus having an inspection. If we are going to have an inspection, having a short timeline. I mean, I talk about everything and I try not to overwhelm them. But I think it's really important to have this initial consultation with them and not just assume that they know what's going on. That's a really quick way to piss off your client, because they'll feel like they're in the dark. So Robin, you have your hand raised.
So if your client, let's say you do all this information and then you get a hold of the listing agent and they're like, yep, we are 10, 20, 40 grand above what you think is a solid offer. How do you discuss that with your clients as far as like what's a solid offer versus what wins keys?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, this data that Craig and I were talking about is just data. It's not, I mean, nobody can predict what is going to happen to any specific property, because all it takes is one emotional buyer who has money from the family saying, doesn't matter, I'll pay 500,000 cash. And then all of our numbers that we just talked about, it doesn't matter. It's out the window. So setting that expectation with your buyer ahead of time is really important. Like my Lincoln area example, we found pretty clearly that homes are on average selling for 112%. Well, that's an average. I'm looking at it right now. I know I'm not sharing my screen. There's one that sold for 125% and one that sold for 121%. You can't predict that. So you can do a pretty good job. The goal is to get a little closer. And that's what we've done here is now we have a much more educated guess, right? We're not just saying, oh, it's listed at 420, you should offer 450. No, we should offer 460 actually, because we did the math and that's, pretty close, but that's not a sure thing. That's not a guarantee. And so I'm not sure I have a good answer for you on that, Robin, because unless you have a crystal ball, there's no way to really ensure that you will know exactly what to offer. It's not an option. Well, actually, the best way to do that is use an escalation clause, right? An escalation clause is essentially doing that. It's saying, what is the highest you'll go? But you're only going to beat the next highest offer by X. So the escalation clause is the best way to not overpay. By overpay, I mean pay more than you have to. So
yeah, I'm pretty much a sticker to the escalator clause because I don't want people to leave money on the table. And so I know that there's people out there that just say, oh, I'll give you 450 on your 420 and that's that. Well, yeah, if your buyer wants to do that, but honestly, it's like, how would you ever know? Yep. Better off escalating to 460.
Yep. Small off topic tangent on your escalation clauses. There's two blank boxes. One is we will beat the next highest offer by this up to whatever. I really strongly encourage you to encourage your buyers to not be cheap on how much you'll beat the next highest offer by. I almost never do less than $5,000. $5,000 is not that much money on a loan. Seriously, $5,000 is about the equivalent of $20 a month. So why would you do 2,000 or 1,000? Oh my gosh. So 1,001's crack me up. I think
it depends on the price range you're in, Isaac. And if you're talking about people at the 350 to 4.25 range, the numbers get tight.
They do get tight, but I'm just saying if you're offering up to 450 on your escalation clause, why wouldn't you beat the next highest offer by 5 instead of 2? Especially when the next highest offer might be a 20%
down. You're saying, what happens in a situation that now you're beating the next offer by 5, and so really your highest, the highest person you can beat is a 445, and that's where if you're beating it by 1,200 and you offer 452 300, then you take 1,200 for 452 300 and you're at 451. I mean, you just analyze the numbers to death like Rain Man, but the bottom line is if you put 5 on a 450, you're only beating a 445. That's what you need to be careful of.
Well, no, you're still beating a 449. You just go up to 450.
Well, okay, so what you're saying is they're going to send it back to you and say, okay, you got it for 450, but you didn't have to beat them by 5. Your max was 450, so we're giving it to you, but we're not tacking your 5 on top because you're capped. You hope the other broker's smart enough to think that.
I hope so. That's like duh. So I would sure hope.
It gets in my way, in my head. It's like, yeah.
No, I mean, you can use a 460 offer to escalate another offer up to 450 because you like the 450 offers terms better.
Oh,
So yeah, I mean, especially, and this is the last point I'll make, and then we'll wrap up. Especially if you're working with a VA or FHA buyer, because if you're a VA or FHA buyer and you're saying you'll beat the next highest offer by $1,000, well, if that next highest offer is a 20% down conventional, there's nobody in their right mind who's going to just take the VA offer or the FHA offer for an extra $1,000. No way. Does that make sense? And that's why I'm saying it. At least get up to the 2,000 or 2,500 range. But in reality, I mean, you're talking about a huge financial decision here. Why don't lose this over $20 a month? That's what I'm saying. In my opinion. All right, guys, any questions? That was good. Good collaboration, Craig.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you on Thursday.